Yeah, I think one other thing I'm just going to add on there is that I think the books do is one, a lot of these books were never meant for the public. People write them and they're just kind of documenting their own journey, and then they share it with somebody, and then they're like, oh, all of a sudden, you know, they're publishing their own book. And it's gotten much easier to publish, self-publish, you know, a book. And so you know, that is a healing journey in and of itself, just documenting for yourself what you've been through and what you've learned from it, the good, the bad, the ugly, and how people express their emotions. You know, that is something we don't do good on a societal level, accepting people's emotions. You know, we don't like the frustration and the anger and the depression, but those things all happen, as well as lifting up the joy and the gratefulness and the gratitude, and all of those things, you know, start bubbling up and together and merging, and that's what makes us whole, you know. And that also, you know, when you can express those things and when you can read those things, that other people are having the same emotions you are, you don't feel so alone and so isolated, which is one of the number one problems with this disease and with society. And with society in general these days, people feel like they don't have a tribe. And so that is massively, massively important with these books as well. So, you know, it's evident how much you know, appreciate all of the work and things that they've put into it. Since you're taking it over, a lot of times there's little twists and turns, you know, that you might want to elevate or expand, or are you just going to kind of keep things the same? What's your vision right now?
Well, yeah. So it's kind of mixed. It's a little bit of both. You know, we're not looking to take, you know, a bulldozer and knock it down and start from scratch. We want to keep that foundation and the integrity of what AlzAuthors was originally built on, to keep that, you know, the same and keep that integrity there. One of the things, though, that, you know, I've heard from several of the authors, and I full-heartedly agree with this. We want to really try to bring the attention back onto the books. You know, the website is fantastic. It's a very modern website, but when you get there, in my opinion, and a lot from the other authors that we've heard from so far, you know, the books have kind of gotten lost. So if you went right today, when we're talking to the homepage, you know, it's talking about the tremendous film festivals, the podcast, you know, the 10th year anniversary. But it really takes the website visitor to go all the way down to the bottom to go to the library of books. And, you know, when the website was rebuilt, those collection of books are very minimal now, and, you know, for one reason or another. And so what our vision is to, in the near future, to, when the visitor comes to that homepage, the books, we want to make them the primary focus and have everything piggyback off of the books. Because without the books, there is no AlzAuthors. You know, you can have a podcast and not have books, right? We have a podcast, you have a podcast, we each have published books, but we don't have a library and a collection of, you know, hundreds of books all on whatever specific topic. And so we really want to bring that to the forefront again and bring these authors back into the fold. And, you know, sometimes, you know, people, like you said, they're not intending to publish a book. That was never their thought or their plan, but they did for one reason or another. Is very therapeutic. And that might have been enough for them. And so they're kind of stepping back and, you know, still caring for their loved one, or maybe their loved one has passed on, and, you know, that period or that season of their life has now changed. And there's really no purpose or reason that they would need to or want to stay involved in that. We respect that and completely understand that. But you're going to have authors who are still out there raising awareness and, you know, I say fighting the good fight of trying to help support caregivers and, you know, raise awareness to dementia, whatever form of dementia their loved one may have been diagnosed with. And we want to engage those people. We want to give them a reason to still be a part of the community and to be active in the community. You know, so we have different ideas of how to do that. We're in the process of getting the email transitioned over to us, and hopefully, you know, by the time people watch or listen to this, that has happened. And we're going to be sending out an email to everybody associated with AlzAuthors at any point in time. And we're going to do a couple of town halls. And the purpose of the town halls are kind of twofold. One, I want to introduce ourselves and myself to these, authors and to this community who may not be familiar with me or with All Home Care Matters. But I also want to get introduced to them. I want to get feedback from them. I want to hear how we can use this new tremendous resource to best support them, but also to raise awareness to dementia. And so a couple of things that we've already discussed and we're looking at doing is kicking off a books awards. So we're going to have, teens, children, spouse, parent, fiction, nonfiction, memoir, whatever you have. We want to have awards for each of those categories. And they could have written their book 3 years ago, 9 years ago, 5 days ago. If you are an AlzAuthor and you have written a book and you want to, you can enter your book into the book award contest. And because one of the beautiful things that the ladies did at AlzAuthors that really separates it from Amazon, other than making sure each book is vetted and authentic and full of factual good information and not, false hope and false promises, is they categorized it. So if you're a parent and you have a child who's, under the age of 13, so they're not a teen yet, and their grandparent has dementia, and you don't know how to explain or help them understand it, there's a whole category, children's books for dementia, that are wonderfully illustrated, wonderfully written. And then there's books for teens. So it's a little more mature, but, not at the adult level. That's still engaging for a teenager. Then you have one, like Jean Lee. I've actually handed her book out probably a half a dozen times. And with families we've encountered who, are coming for our support services with our company. And it's a daughter who now has a mom that has dementia and she just doesn't know where to turn or what to do, which is so often the case with so many families. We hand out Jean Lee's book, Alzheimer's Daughter, and I've read it front to cover, and it is fantastic. And we've had such positive feedback from those families. We've given not just Jean Lee's book, but other books out that, we have several hundred AlzAuthors books in our library here at our building, and they're all categorized. And, it's a tremendous thing to be able to hand that to somebody in one of their most dire times and say, no, this is free, but this is a good resource. We have a lot of resources from, the Health Institute and all these other things that we hand people, but it's also good to hear from just a person like you who's gone through it. Much more relatable, I feel. And so there's going to be categories for spouse with dementia, parent with dementia, every category there's poetry, like I said, there's fiction and nonfiction. And that's one of the first things we want to do to get these authors re-engaged. And I feel like, we need to give them a purpose to keep involved with AlzAuthors. And we have some other things we're planning on doing. Any new author, we're going to interview them on All Home Care Matters if they apply and they're approved as an AlzAuthor. That's one of the bonuses and benefits, if you will. And there's some other things we're looking at doing. I really want to break down as many books as possible. This is a very lofty goal, and it's going to be a very time-consuming one. But, I have no problem doing it. It's just not going to be instantaneously. But I want to do individual books myself, just like a 2-3 minute, cliff notes of this book and help promote it, not only for the author's benefit, but also for the family caregiver out there who is looking for some light and some hope at the end of that tunnel, and help them to feel less overwhelmed and, isolated.